people contracting the disease, and at the end of the day, they're going to take it into family, especially for we the students that have to use transportation, commercial vehicles to come to school every day.
The latest outbreak of the Ebola virus began in the forest of remote eastern Guinea in February. It starts with headaches and fever, and final stage symptoms include external and internal bleeding, vomiting, and diarrhea.
Well, let's talk more about this. I'm being joined now by the Voice of America's Steve Baragona. He's a science correspondent. Hello, Steve, and thank you so much for joining me.
Sure, happy to be here.
Well, there seems to be another interesting angle to the spread of the Ebola virus, in that poverty and poor governance could aid the spread of the virus. How so? Could you kindly explain this, please?
Sure. I've been talking to some experts who have been saying that basically if you look at where the serious outbreaks of Ebola have been, Ebola and also Marburg, a related virus, they've all been in areas that have been devastated by conflict. Democratic Republic of Congo, for one, Sierra Leone, of course, Liberia also. And in Guinea, they dodged the bullet of the civil wars that happened in their neighboring countries, but they had years of corrupt government and poor governance. And over that time, the health systems have just degraded and degraded and degraded. And so they're just not equipped to handle these things. So that's one aspect. And then you also have the problem of people themselves. When you have poor people, especially in rural areas, they're going deeper and deeper into the forests to try to find food to feed themselves. And as they go into these forests, they're encountering the wildlife that carries the virus. And also, in order to feed themselves, they're cutting down the forests in order to make charcoal for fuel and also to grow crops. And so as they cut down the forest, you wind up driving that same wildlife that carries the virus out of the forest and into contact with people. So it's kind of it happens from both sides.
Now, how can a few isolated cases suddenly turn into a pandemic of a virus that is only caught through contacts? Because you mentioned people going to the forest. So how can this happen?
Well, one thing that I've heard is that there's a chance that it can amplify in healthcare settings. People go to hospitals, people who do get sick will go to hospitals, and then if these hospitals are not equipped, if they can't isolate people, then it can spread to healthcare workers, and the healthcare workers go home and they spread it that way. There's also a lot of the kind of cultural practices in the region. People will wash the bodies of their dead, and in the process of washing these bodies, unfortunately, they're then getting infected themselves. And so it then just builds and builds and builds.
Well, thank you so much, Steve, for joining us on the program.
Certainly.
I've been speaking with the Voice of America's Steve Baragona from the VOA newsroom, and he's a science correspondent. We'll take another quick break now on the world today, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about something a little bizarre. Ever heard of the Owl Cafe? Well, I'll tell you all about it in just a moment. Welcome back. It's the last lap of the world today. Now, some bit of news to warm your heart. Remember Maryam Ibrahim, the Sudanese woman who fled to Italy after being spared a death sentence for renouncing Islam? Well, she's arrived in the U.S. She arrived in New Hampshire yesterday evening with her American husband and children. One of those who welcomed her was the Philadelphia mayor, Michael Nutter, who described her as a world freedom fighter. There was global condemnation when she was sentenced to hang for apostasy by a Sudanese court earlier this year. Mrs. Ibrahim's father is Muslim, and so according to Sudan's version of Islamic law, she's also Muslim and cannot convert to another religion. But she maintains she was never a Muslim, having been raised by her Christian mother.
I can describe that.
Freedom. It's all about freedom, and that's what she's getting right now. She's getting freedom.
Wonderful development. Now, if you're a fan of animals and nocturnal ones for that matter, here's a story for you. There's an owl cafe in downtown Tokyo called the Fukuro no Misi, which when translated means owl store. Now, the cafe has from 20 to 30 owls at any given time for visitors to touch, pet, and even put on their heads. According to the store owner, what appears to appeal to visitors is that they can get to interact with animals that have an almost mystical appeal to them. But this trend is not the first of its kind, as it originally started in 2012. The store now has long queues of people waiting to register for a 60-minute time slot to have coffee, tea, or even a beer with the birds.
ちょっと見えない歯がゆさが
そういう意味で非日常的な中で Pretty happy to see that the owls seem pretty well taken care of and pretty used to all these people. He's a little unhappy right now. He missed me though, so excellent choice.
Talk about a weird fad. Now, if you're one who does not take physical fitness seriously, a couple of dogs about to make you feel so uncomfortable that you might consider hitting the gym. Well, unfortunately, we do not have that story, but I hope we'll have that story in our next edition of The World Today. But that's the program for today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. It's the last edition for the week. I'm Harriet Agbenyi. Have a great weekend. Up next is Sports News at 6.